Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Gavel Gang Podcast, an insight into the collections we get here at Ewbank's auction house in Surrey. Welcome back to the Gavel Gang. It's January.
It is.
I'm trying to get enthusiastic, but I'm still in January mode. But
we
don't
can do
worry,
enthusiasm. It's buyable.
It's coming back. It's slowly coming back as the weather improves. A hint of spring in the air. And I'm here today with a new member of the Gavel Gang.
Howdy.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's a cunning thing. We're not quite sure how to do that yet, are we?
No.
Okay, so we've already got a Tom, so I was going to call myself Tom D, and I learnt his name was already Tom D, so we're opting for Duma, I think.
Duma.
Duma will be fine.
Sort of sounds suitable, like Doom. It's like, because you're in comics.
Very much so.
So, I don't know, somehow that name works for me.
Dr. Doom.
Dr. Doom is a very famous comic book character. We'll take that.
That's what it is. And that's James, and he's behind the mics. He's over there doing his magic.
Sorry.
Hi.
James is keeping us on the rails, for the record.
So, you seem to have your own complete wing
Yes.
in the entertainment
Absolutely.
castle. This is great. And I'm looking around, I can see boxes and boxes of comics. I can see boxes of wine, but I suspect they're actually wine boxes that
Wish they
contain
were
comics.
wine. What are they now? They're all graphic novels.
I like wine. I think I like comics as well. I've only bought a few, so I'm good for interviewing you because I don't know anything really about comics, so I can act the kind of dumb
That makes two of
interviewer.
us. If we wing it, we might just get through this.
Let me tell you what I've bought in my life.
Cool.
I bought The Killing Joke.
Excellent.
I remember buying that in Leicester.
Iconic.
There was a great comic shop called Another World.
Right.
It was very like Forbidden Planet. I'd probably buy a comic book like that every 5 years.
Hardcore,
Something
Johnny.
like the
I like
hardcore
it.
comic buyer. The Killing Joke was one. Mouse was
Yeah.
another one I remember. I like these.
Some
you call
nice,
them
light, easy
compendiums
reading
where
there
it's-
on Mouse. That's
Yeah. I went through a phase. I was in New Jersey for a while, and I would, every time a new copy of The Walking Dead came out, I went and bought one before it was the TV show.
Yeah.
And I would sit in this little coffee house, and I would buy my little bagel coffee, talk to the old ladies,
Yeah.
and sit and read the latest installment of The Walking Dead. And it was a
Great
real
series.
pleasure.
I once had dinner with Charlie Adlard, the artist of The Walking Dead. All I wanted to do was talk to him about zombies, and all he wanted to do was talk to me about spaghetti. It was a very mismatched conversation.
Were you eating spaghetti at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we'd gone to a local pub which promised cuisine, and it had nothing of the sort. So spaghetti was what we had.
So when we say comics, do we mean graphic novels rather than anything like the Beano or, old
I
comics?
think
This
at
is
this
all...
point, comics generally refers to like American superhero comic book issues as how we refer to them over here in the UK, but it can refer to anything you like. If it's illustrated and it's being published in a somewhat periodic fashion, it can refer to it.
Okay, so you don't get mad if I say comics rather than graphic novels and kick me out of the
No one should be getting mad at that term.
No.
If you've missed the point. Go back.
Well, they're all about enjoyment. So obviously you enjoy them. How long have you been involved with comics? What's your history?
Professionally, about 22 years. My household didn't grow up with TV. The first thing my dad did was always just take me to the local library, plonk me in front of the graphic novel / comic section, Asterix, Tintin, Hergé, whatever was doing the rounds there at the time.
Yeah.
And left me to my own devices for an hour, and it was terrific. So I guess from basically the cradle to now, really, about 4 onwards, I think.
Yeah.
So
did you work in a comic shop?
oh yeah, I've run comic shops for 20 years.
Run them, excellent. And are there many left in outside
Surprisingly,
of
yes. They are squirreled away like little nuggets of information and joy. For example, if you're in London, you're lucky enough to be bombarded by the great big Forbidden Planet, which is all things razzmatazz, pop culture,
several floors,
sensation. Absolutely, it's got a lift, funky stuff. And then as soon as you kind of go outside of the Big Smoke, you get a few other little ones. In Croydon, you've got a place and space, which is all kinds of fabulous. In Brighton, you've got Dave's Comics, again, all kinds of fabulous.
There's one in Crawley. Someone told me.
I believe, there's quite a few around there which you have to make appointments for, which end up being quite niche and dedicated, which is quite lovely. So,
oh wow, like speakeasy of comic world.
Almost like if you, there's a really really big thing now where we've got Comic Cons where you can go and meet a bunch of dealers a couple of times a year.
Yeah,
you've got quite every 2 months in London. You've got the Comic Mart, which is a really quite dedicated collector and hive mind of comic buyers, comic dealers, and a lot of those chaps you'll meet there, for example. They will have, I guess, shops, but they might only open a couple of days a week, a couple of hours a week by appointment. But some of the stuff they'll be carrying is really, really, really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a proper rabbit hole.
I live in Guildford, and I did a long time ago work at Waterstones, and they are pretty good comic.
Yeah, they really do.
Back then, that was around 2009, 10 when I worked there. And in Guildford, there was this, I call it the comic shed. The building's still there. It was on a road called Stoke Road or Chertsey Road. I think it turns into Stoke Road. And there's a pub, and next to it, this lean-to, long metal corrugated shack.
This sounds all kinds of shady.
Only a decade
Fabulous.
or so, but yeah, in Guildford, where the rents are crazy, the rates are high. And it just seemed like, now it seems like some mad memory. I'm like, there really was this place there. And it's sad that it's gone.
I did my work experience in the Waterstones, where I was curating the comic book selection there once upon a time when I was 16. I remember we had the graphic novels and comics filed away next to the smut and the erotic novels, which was appropriate, really.
That was my section in Waterstones. It was in the basement. Yeah. So now you're at the auction house.
Absolutely.
So how does an auction house differ? And if anyone wants to consign some comics, could you manage expectations? Is it different for someone bringing to a comic shop, selling on eBay?
It's fascinating. So, like, when you take traditional comic book collecting, well, I'd say the majority of them are probably purchased brand new from comic shops.
Yeah.
Often cover price, often retail, and they're what you call like the brand new frontline product, like that week's material. But of course, comic books they've got such a rich history at this point. It's not like you're dealing, I don't know, what a comparable modern day item would be with maybe 5, 10, 15 years of history, but comics are knocking on the century now. So a large portion of what people want to collect, I mean, Action Comics is just sneaking up to its 85th year anniversary.
That's the ones with the famous Superman
absolutely,
cover that makes so much money.
And a lot of people, you very rarely ever get people say, oh man, I was into comics for like one summer. It doesn't happen. You get people who like, read an issue or they're in it for life. Yes. So you're either kind of like, dip your toes in, like you're all good, or like yourself, you're still aware of what's going on. You can still reference a Killing Joke. You can still reference Mouse. And if someone gave you a comic tomorrow, you'd be like, oh, cool.
Yes,
like,
that's true.
It's very rare that you get people going, oh, no, okay. It tends to be something that bites. So when you've got this medium that's knocking on a century, you've got this wealth of material out there that people want to try and collect. And of course, you can't collect this brand new from a comic shop. So what do? You turn to the aftermarkets, and where are they? They're in auction houses, they're on eBay, they're on trading, they're in collectors, they're from your mates. So although you think comic book collecting, you think comic book shop, but the reality is 95% of comic book collecting happens outside of that, happens in auction houses, happens from, die-hard collectors, dyed-in-the-wall collectors who've been doing it the majority of their lives.
Yeah.
For me, that's fascinating as hell. It's one of the very few mediums you can literally combine art, narrative, and collecting all in one.
So a good place if you want to get an instant collection. Amazing.
In an auction house, it's perfect.
Yeah. And for selling, if I wanted to sell a collection...
Absolutely.
Good way to make money on a big lot.
For sure. I mean, right now we're experiencing an absolute influx of collectors who maybe they've just decided they'd like to pass on their hard-earned and hard-collected treasure on a whole to whoever it may be, to the new lucky owner. It's quite rare in an auction house to have someone come in and say, I'd just like to sell these 1 or 2 bits. You get a lot of folks coming in and saying, I'd like to sell these, however large the collection may be, because normally they're looking to upsell. They're looking to trade in some bits, sell some stuff, and consolidate their earnings into one bigger grail, so to speak. Because in comics, you're always looking for the issue that you didn't have.
Yeah.
You're always looking for that issue you've seen publicised, you've seen photos of it for your whole life, but you've never even held one. That's what you're looking for, the grails. If you're a Batman fan, it's really, really tough to find the origin of Batman these days in Detective Comics 27. I mean, I myself have been in comics for 20 years, been working around comics for 20 years. I've never even seen a copy.
Oh, interesting. Because I'm always, I do car boots, charity shops, looking for vinyl.
Oh, they're out there. Well, I hear folks in the UK saying they've got copies,
You hope that you'll open some battered old suitcase and then there'll be a load of comics.
It's the dream of every comic book collector to find what they really want.
What's the record for individual comic now?
Very recent, actually. Sold last year, which was a Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. This actually supersedes the Superman one, which for years held it. For years, a lot of people were listening to this now, would be squawking and going, no, Tom, it's Action Comics #1. And it was for absolute years. I think that held it. Don't quote me here, folks, but I think it was 2.8 million. But That was Action Comics #1, CGC'd at a grade of 9. But now, literally as of last year, at the end of last year, I think it was November 2023, Amazing Fantasy 15 came bowling along in a grade of CGC 9.6 and took it, I think it was for $3.6 million.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's still some way behind, say, the art world, but then that's got a few thousand years more.
For sure.
So,
it literally, it's literally got
hundreds.
millennia on. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'd say the art, wines and whiskey worlds can really blow everyone else away when it comes to this stuff.
Same with vinyl. There's not many vinyl records that are, certainly not many breach a million. I mean, most of them are worth £5 to £100, but a few are worth my own personal record with selling a vinyl record individually was £1,000.
Yeah.
So it's more still about the love for them.
I'd say
but they're getting respectability and getting
for sure, and also awareness. It's really interesting you mentioned the art world, because I love art with all my heart. My dad made sure I was holding a brush as early as I could. I'm classically trained. I went to uni, did my degree in art, all that jazz. Absolutely adore it. But the big numbers in art, I find it really interesting, actually, is to look at the volume, because, you see those sky-high numbers and what people are paying for. But it's also quite rare. By what I mean is the sheer volume of comics now being sold at a high level. Maybe it's almost, I don't know, one day will it be comparable? I really don't know, because so many people have got access now to comics, but not that many people have that access to that echelon of art.
If a Rubens sells, there's one copy. Action Comics, even though it was it's now rare, was mass-produced on a printing machine.
It was. One sold this month. One sold this month in the States.
Supposed to be read and thrown in the bin.
Yeah.
So it's kind of amazing that they've, become so collectible.
So many of them were pulped in so many of the big iconic issues.
What a thought.
Yeah, so many of them went...
I have nightmares about landfill. What could be in there?
Well, when the war effort was on and people needed the ballast, that's where it went.
Let's get some spades and go digging.
People, there was a couple of years ago, someone found they were redoing their house and they found it in the wall insulation. Battered to hell. I think it hit a 1.8, but hey, it was there.
There were some great film posters found. There's some carpets, weren't there?
I'm not telling anyone listening to dig up the house, by the way. Don't do that just yet. Don't go knocking down the walls.
So when's the next auction? What can
April the 4th.
April the 4th.
I was thinking about April the 1st, but then people might have thought I was mugging them off. So
April the 4th, isn't that the day Kurt Cobain died? Oh, it rings a bell for some reason.
Look at you, a vinyl fan.
I think
Good
it
man.
is, and we've got which leads on to some Nirvana tickets that were for April the 5th for the tour that never happened, sadly.
Yes, I heard a rumour they were actually next door.
Yeah. Anyway, great to talk to you, and I must come into this wing more often of Entertainment Castle.
It's great fun. I've normally playing some heroically dodgy tunes. We've got a coffee machine which works sometimes.
Yeah, and a fridge.
The fridge is there.
Well, hopefully James press record for all that, and then we can say bye.
Should we start recording now, James?
Bye.
Au revoir.
Thank you for listening to the Gavel Gang Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe and take a look at the Ewbank's website for more information on this and upcoming auctions. Until next time, going.